here as well. Didn't work successfully last week, and I've got yeah, I'm going to try and share a screen myself with some news visuals as well to keep you up to date with what's going on from an expat foreigner point of view. Oh, there we go. We are live on YouTube. That's good to know. Fantastic. Okay, coming back to Zoom now. Get the questions in, please, premium members of Expats Portugal, and we've got some new personnel from Winsurance to introduce you to tonight as well. Before we go there, let me share with you then some news. This is new for me, being able to share my screen, which pressing a button, I might even be able to do. Let's have a look. I need to share my presentation. Marvelous. Okay. It's going well so far, believe it or not. This is what you're up against, isn't it? You lovely webinar guests of ours. And I don't normally do this. I talked to these last week. I spoke them, and I think I spoke for too long. So I'm going to keep it a little bit briefer this evening and share with you. Oh, you can't click on your presentation, can you? You can only you can't click on your screen share. You have to click on the actual thing. So let me do that now, and you can tell me if it's working or not. There we go. Is that working now? Yeah. Can I have a thumbs up? All right.
Yes.
I'm presenting and being the host this evening. Right. So first of the news. Oh, actually, let me just record as well over here onto Zoom. So we've got a copy of the recording. Gosh, so many things to do. It is like flying an aeroplane. Right, here we go then. We're starting the town hall. Expats Portugal on a Thursday evening between 9 and 10. The dream team are here as well. But before we get started, I just want to share a couple of things with you, a few things. Can foreigners vote in local elections? They're coming up in September. They will be taking place on the level of municipality or the assemblies of the municipalities, and you'll be able to vote for mayors as well. And that's a lot of people actually that are going to be going into public office or changing places in public office. Date isn't confirmed yet. Foreign residents may vote to choose the next mayor of the city in which they reside, as well as other officials in their locality. That's 308 mayors in the country, as well as members of the municipal assemblies. People will also pick more than 3,000 presidents of parishes. I live next door to mine, where I live, around the country. In this election, people will choose the best candidate to represent and work in their cities and towns. So it's a lovely bit of local government. It's a really good thing, I personally think, here in Portugal. You get to choose. And you can choose as a resident here in Portugal. You need to go and register at your Junta de Freguesia. And as I understand it, and Daniel will correct me if I'm wrong, when you've become a resident, you are automatically entered onto the electoral roll. Oh yes, I'm getting a nod from Daniel, which I'm very pleased about. So there you go. If you want to vote in Portugal, if you may have done it before, but if you want to get involved this year in September, you can do that. We'll have a new president as well. I think it's this year, isn't it? Or is that early in next year? But anyway, a new president is on his way, and people are jostling for position for that already, including Andre Ventura of Chega as well, funnily enough. Not his first time, as Daniel pointed out to me last week. Right, that's the elections. Also wanted to wish a happy blog birthday to a very excellent blogger who is Portuguese, because there are a lot of influencers, aren't there, who are foreigners and think they can talk about Portugal, myself included. But there are a few exceptional ones who are actually Portuguese. And Katia's command of English, she loves the English language, and she's a great writer. And she's been doing this for 12 years, way ahead of the curve, I have to say. So happy birthday to your blog, Katia, Beyond Lisbon Lima. And you can tell from the title of the blog, she thinks there is a Portuguese world outside of the capital city, which is always good to know. And she thought that a long time ago, and she's been writing for 12 years, including the legendary blog piece, Meet the B-Day, Do's, Don'ts, and my easy 5-step guide to using it like a pro, which I think some foreigners actually need, which you'll find over on her blog on WordPress there, beyondlisbon.wordpress.com, if you want to read Katia's blog. And she is a great meme collector as well, and a great writer, and you'll be educated by a proper Portuguese blogger over there. And finally, some amazing things here. The government presents 30 measures to reduce Portugal's fiscal bureaucracy. And I think Pedro Franco has mentioned this from time to time. But this really is amazing. Oh, and thanks to the Portugal News for the first piece and to the Portugal resident Natasha's Dons for this one as well. This is a great piece, and I might come back to some of these and ask our dream team what they think of some of the proposals that have come up. The government seem to be doing a lot to make things more efficient. They've appointed a kind of Elon Musk equivalent as well, a Doge for Portugal to increase Portuguese governmental efficiency. We'll find out what our dream team think of that. So those are my news picks for this week. He's on the screen already, Nuno. So let's start with you. Often we save the best till last, if you don't mind me saying that, everybody else. Nuno, good evening to you. I'll pick you first because you've brought some colleagues with you as well this evening. How are you, Nuno? Tudo bem? Boa noite.
Good evening, everyone. So everything okay? Yes, I have here some part of the team, insurance team. Probably on the next week, um, I will not be able to attend to the and participate to the webinar. So you can count with them. Okay,
Wonderful.
basically this. Regarding insurance world, as you always ask about, so I have 2 points that I would like to go deep because you that start living in Portugal, you also start going deep. So first about the insurance premiums increment, the rise of health insurance premiums. And this is public information. You can access to the private hospitals and get this information. So summarizing, hospital rates have raised 50% on doctor appointments, MRIs, and hospital stays. This is just a summary. So the rise of the insurance premiums is a consequence of the rise of the hospital costs. Okay. Now, some of you, after 1 or 2 years living in Portugal, start having the false feeling of security and that have the healthcare costs controlled and start requesting for downgrades of the insurance plan. Uh, I'm going to start talking about MGN because I think it's the well-known insurer due to its unique characteristics. And they have some politics. Has once someone left company, canceled the insurance policy, no longer will be accepted. Okay. Also, reduction plans if someone requests a reduction, a downgrade of the plan, the insurer, so in some years, if you request for an upgrade, they could refuse. The reason about how they have these politics is because in the beginning, some people took advantage of them. So they introduced some politics to defend themselves, but mostly to defend the members that already have an insurance plan with MGM. Okay. Also, and regarding the limits of outpatient, I would like to give you an example that you have from one of our customers. So this customer has attended 2 times to hospital urgencies and did a doctor appointment, had a doctor appointment and did minor exams, nothing much, and paid 50 euros each time. But the insurer paid almost 700 euros, draining the outpatient coverage limit and no more money to further consultations, exams, or treatments. So if you are considering downgrading the plan or cancel the insurance policy, have a deep conversation with us. Even if you are not insured with us, no worries. We could explain you why you should look carefully to that decision. Okay,
Very interesting.
because it's a long-term
Yeah. And
consequence.
so
Okay.
not a very good way to try and save a little bit of money. It could cost you a lot in the long run.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Because the health insurance costs are rising, so
Yeah.
we should expect
Okay.
that we need to spend more money in the future for the same treatment. Okay? Just this.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else you want to add? Is that it for the time being?
No, it's only this.
It's quite a sobering and useful reminder there, so thank you very much. And thanks for being here. Pedro as well, and Ruta from the Winsurance team. If you want to say hi, feel free to do so. Gilda just delivered a wonderful webinar. All you need to know about Portugal's visas for 2025. Claudia was assisting for that hour or more, possibly, as well as Anna. Claudia, welcome back again to the Dream Team Town Hall. Thanks for coming back. You must be exhausted after a day's work as well.
Yes, good morning. I can speak English very well, but I'm here. And I can try explain everything about migration for residence permits or residence visa.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here this evening. And you are in the Lisbon office, I take it, are you?
No, I am Porto.
Oh, Porto. Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. All right. So representing Porto tonight. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Yes. And there's always the offer of coffee and cake, I think, in the Porto office, isn't there? If I remember rightly, certainly in Casa Portuguesa. Is it the same for your office, or do you share an office up there?
Yes, it's the same office.
Is it? Okay.
Yes, I work
Fantastic.
with Ivana and Anna.
Oh, wonderful. We'll do send them our best regards as well. And thank you for being here to take those migration and visa questions this evening. Daniel, how are you? Was I correct about how to qualify as a voter here in Portugal this September?
Well, I think that the foreigner will need to go into the town hall and request the number to be able to vote, because there's a voting number associated to you.
Yep.
So there's don't consider that you have your voting number from the get-go, from the time that you do enroll, that you have a proof of address, because if you don't communicate to the Junta de Freguesia, to the town hall, they will not know that you're living there, and they will not attribute a number. So before the election, go there, register yourself as a voter in the municipality, and you will be able to vote in the local election. So that's the thing that is granted for people that have the residency permit. So you need to have the residency permit first, and then you will be able to vote in the Portuguese local elections. And it's I would say it's the most interesting elections in Portugal, because you're usually voting for people that you actually know on a day-to-day basis. So there's your neighbors, there's the people that deliver your mail. They will be in those lists, and you'll see some familiar faces. And that's the cool thing about local elections, especially because the Junta de Freguesia, outside of the big city centers, they're small. It's people that you see on the cafes, or that you'll see in the bank. So it's a cool elections. And the perception that I have, and this is usually how I do distribute my votes, is that you do end up voting for the people that you know, even if it's not the parties that you would eventually vote in the national elections. I end up voting for parties that I would never vote in the national elections, but I vote on the local elections because I know the people, and that's it's the reasoning behind the voting. It's quite different from the national elections or the European elections. So it's cool. I like the local elections.
That is great, and you're right. I see the second in command in my local cafe. And when I found I was quite surprised by some of the old ladies using Portuguese swear words that I'd seen online, and there is a direct line of accountability, isn't there, with these government officials, even from the grandmas of the village. It's quite amazing. Right,
there's no way of hiding behind, well, in the parliament, that there's a big difference, or a big screen behind the people that you do elect, and their representatives. But on local elections, there's no way to hide. You do go into the same places, the same cafes, the same banks. So you're accountable, and people will call you to reason if the streets are not well cleaned. So it's interesting.
Yes, and could you tell us, there are mayors. You're going to be voting for mayors and presidents. So the president is of the Junta de Freguesia, the mayor is for the municipality. Is that right?
Correct. So basically, you're voting to three different things. The first one is the assembly of the municipality. So there's like the parliament of the municipality, then you're voting for the president of the municipality, and then you're voting for the president of the Junta de Freguesia. Those are the three things that you're voting in local elections, and I would say it's fun.
It's quite complicated, but very good. A lovely local democracy. Lovely to see
Yep.
that. Thank you for explaining that to us. Anything else you want to share with us from the world of law, for example?
Well, you were mentioning about the election of the president. It's indeed going to be next year, but people are already starting to build up the pressure for the presidency election. Although no one has, just André Ventura came out and said that he wants to run for president. Then another guy that was running a syndicate, a teachers syndicate, but the major candidates, they haven't yet moved forward because they are taking their time. And it's, I would say from November, no, not November, October onwards, that's probably when things will start eating up for the election. So let's wait and see.
Very good. And anything from law, the world of law?
Well, not that I'm aware of. I haven't seen the news today, so I haven't had. I don't have a lot of things to report. So nothing particular in my area of expertise, apart from one thing that I think is interesting to convey, and this is the. I think I did mention this last town hall. It's a meeting that occurred in EMA regarding the golden visas and they're trying to expedite the procedures and the processes, and the clock for the nationality will start from the time that the processes are submitted and paid. So it's it seems to be good news, although the lawyers that do handle golden visas, we are having double the trouble because all the processes that were submitted from 2022 onwards, they will need to be resubmitted with new documentation. So it's a busy time at our law firm at the moment that we are resubmitting a lot of documents for the cases that we have. But we are hopeful that with this, we will be able to have the biometric data collection for the clients from 2022 onwards, and thus the residency permits issued. So good news on the golden visa front.
That's great. Thank you very much for your update. Let's go to Sarah now. Sarah Davey of Spartan FX. How are you doing, Sarah? You can vote. You've just discovered in the September election here as a resident of Portugal. How are you this evening?
I'm very well. I mean, I wasn't here last week, so it's Happy New Year for me.
Why not to you? We comment. Obrigado.
But excited for 2025, to be honest, certainly from the currency world. I mean, Trump starts on Monday.
Who?
It
Oh,
should be
yes, yes, yes,
yes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, is it not?
It is, because I mean, since the election, if you're selling US dollars and you're buying euros, it's nearly 16,000 US dollars cheaper to buy 250,000 euros.
That's significant, is it not? Wow.
since
Okay, that's a
November.
car.
So, well, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. What could you do with that money?
Yes, indeed. And a lot of prato do dias, definitely. So be aware of that, the changes, and how you can safeguard yourself as well and buy at a selected price. Any other strategy or news from the currency world to share with us tonight, Sarah?
I think it's just sort of looking forward for 2025. I mean, obviously, no one's got a crystal ball, but obviously, with Trump now starting, it's sort of the things that he talked about. Will he be able to implement them? So if he's imposing more tariffs and it's going to be a bit more expensive for the US to import, that'll impact inflation. So the Fed might actually not want to cut interest rates, which will be good for the US dollar. It's whether he'll be able to implement them at all, or maybe there'd be more diluted versions. So that might not be as good for the US dollar. And then elsewhere, you've obviously got what's happening in the Eurozone. I mean, the International Monetary Fund, they predict that the Eurozone will grow, so that'll be good for Euro strength. And then obviously we've still got, will there be ceasefires, you know, with Israel, with Russia and the Ukraine, which will obviously give a bit more confidence in the market, and people will move out of maybe the safe haven currency of the US dollar. So could be a lot of volatility.
Yes.
we'll see how really that plays out. But I think one thing that we sort of look is historically, how many times have we been at these levels? We're very good levels at the moment, and things can move very quickly as well. So it's just about kind of depending on what your time frames, just be aware of this, think of it in advance, make sure that you're looking at this, which will help you budget. As you said, that change in the exchange rate, that could be a car. It's things like that to sort of bear in mind.
Yeah, thank you very much. If you haven't done so already, make sure you open a free account with Spartan FX. You can see the details next to Sarah on the screen there. Thank you very much. Yeah, and however you feel politically about the incoming president on Monday, it is going to change, or it's likely to change, isn't it? The world, or affect the world of currency. So be aware of that as well, and keep in close contact with Spartan FX about those changes. Thanks, Sarah, for the time being. If you've got any questions for Sarah or Nunu or Daniel or Claudia, please pop them into the chat. I will get to them. I just need to welcome everybody this evening, including Pedro Franco from Migrant. Good evening to you in Porto, I believe, this evening.
Yeah, good evening to all.
Tudo bem?
Yeah, so what's new in the tax front? I think you've heard some news about the 30 measures that of the
Yes.
simplification that the
What do you
government
make of
is.
those? Well, I mean, I was tempted to go through them one by one, but that's a lot of points, isn't it? There's a lot of
No,
things on there.
don't
No.
do that. It's not to that.
What are the highlights then, Pedro?
We'll be the last ones remaining here in the end.
So yeah,
No,
okay.
but I can make just the conclusion of this is
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
the message is that this government has always tried to pass the message and to create the perception that it wants to be more friendly for companies. It wants to create a friendly ecosystem for companies because Europe is getting very known as being a very bureaucratic place for businesses, and it's getting more difficult to open a business, to run a business in Europe. Doesn't matter if it's in the UK or Portugal or France. It's all the people complain about the same problems.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's important that this type of measures that the government has announced today, they really they can be resumed in simplification, better communication with taxpayers. So a lot of simplification for companies. So imagine there's a lot of invisible work that one cannot see, but accountants have to do for companies, and companies have a lot of what we call these context costs, which is just compliance, just filing returns, sending information to them, and they are trying to eliminate a lot of redundant returns that companies have to file, and to create more agile communication and the compliance requirements, that they are more agile for taxpayers individually or for companies. For example, they are going to create a more easy, friendly, how do you say it? So user-friendly tax return for individual taxpayers with more assistance. So probably in the future, you won't need so many accountants to help them file tax returns, for example.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's a lot around this. They will use also AI, sorry, not EI. I hope so. That's good.
Yes.
They will use AI to also to create a better communication between economic agents and the tax authorities. So it's very positive, yes. So because
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, and you're feeling that, are you? It's largely positive what's being suggested.
yes, it is. No, definitely. Because, for example, I'm also an accountant, and in the past I worked with a lot of companies. And one thing that was always terrible for us, that was the amount of redundant information that we had to send in 10 different ways.
Yes.
For 10 departments of the tax authorities of the government. And that now they will just consolidate this on one return, for example. So
Very good.
but
Okay, looking
everything
forward to that.
together will create a more less compliance and less costs of context for companies, and this is a cost. So
That can only
if
be a good
companies
thing,
have,
right? Yes,
yeah.
yes, indeed. Right, that's wonderful. And a renovation of the Finances portal as well is also promised. I imagine that's going to be turbocharged with AI, and you may not need to be a professor of economics to use it in the future. Right, let's get to the questions. Thank you very much, Pedro. Good to see you here. Any questions about taxation here in Portugal? Pedro's your man. Tom Smith back with us from a -3 degrees Ohio. Thanks for being here, Tom. Much appreciated. Thank you for your offer, Marcos, as well, with the IT support. I'll get better at that. Square Eyes, good to see you. Haven't seen you for a while. La Ronda, of course, lovely to see you, and Debbie in Coimbra. And some talk of the by that time, is this a poem you've made here, Tom? Babies born today are part of the Generation Beta. After that, it will be Generation 4 release, then Generation Bug Patches, then Generation version 2.0. And by that time, we should have a new Lisbon airport. Very good, Tom. As far as infrastructure projects, I'm hearing that the government is starting to run out of money. Is it common for this to happen in Portugal? At what point does a promised project become likely to be completed? Who wants to take that? Nobody.
I won't.
Right, okay. I won't. Did you say, or you will, Daniel?
Well, it's politicians in Portugal, they like to promise stuff as anywhere in the world, but we do take a long time to decide. And the two parties that run the show in Portugal, instead of sitting down on major stuff and deciding and setting a policy for, let's say, 15, 20 years, they don't. And this is really frustrating, especially for big projects. In the 90s, this was a bit possible, especially building the highways, because everyone was agreeing upon building the highways, and we were having money coming from the EU to build the highways. But apart from the highway national project, I would say people agreed on building the Expo 98. But apart from that, I don't see politicians and the Portuguese population agreeing upon building anything. Well, the airport is much needed. Everyone agrees that we need one, but then the politicians they're not able to to agree. Where is it? Where is it going to be? Is it two airports, one airport? It's difficult to move forward like this.
Very interesting. Okay. Yeah, maybe it needs a deadline like 98. Maybe if we call the airport 2030, it might get built in time.
Please. That's a brilliant idea.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Portugal. Right. Okay. Thanks, Daniel, for having a go at that. Nuno, can you explain the conversion of the travel insurance needed? This is from Constance for the visa to health insurance. Yeah. So your travel insurance and then your insurance when you're here. Please explain that, Nuno.
Because so to get the visa, you will do it in two stages. The first one is the appointment on the embassy, consulate, or VFS office in your country, and the second one will be the second stage will be the meeting on IMAX CEF. So regarding the first stage, the requirement is it's a very specific travel medical insurance. The majority of the travel insurance, the regular ones, don't comply with the requirements. We have tailored with one insurer, one that fully complies with the Portuguese authorities' requirements. We have already roughly 900 applicancies that got 100%, and they were 100% acceptable, no matter where the embassy or consulate was all over the world. So if this is the situation, just let us know how we can assist you.
Wonderful. There you go. Thank you very much for the question and the answer there, Nuno. Great stuff. Who was it who asked that question? Constance. There you go, Constance. Any more questions from you? Please pop them into the chat. We are live on YouTube, and you're very welcome to watch on YouTube, but you need to become a premium member. to join the webinar here and have your questions answered. Loads of great benefits for becoming a premium member here at Expats Portugal. Do so at expatsportugal.com. Now, the idea of voting has provoked one or two questions. Do you have to be a resident for a minimum of 3 years to vote? Thanks, says Derek. That's for some nationalities, not all, I think. Isn't that right, Daniel? I think there are 2 year, 3 year, and no year thresholds for this.
I'm not aware of that threshold, to be honest. As I usually deal with a lot of US and Brazilian clients, I don't think that those clients do have any limitations in that regard. I cannot.
Neither would Brits, right? I don't think Brits would either. So
Yeah,
needn't worry about that.
Well, I'm not aware of those types of limitations, so I don't think that they are a big reality, to be honest, or at least that they do affect the clients that I usually deal with.
Okay, there you go. So you can look forward to that voting in September. If you register at your Junta de Freguesia, that's what you need to do, Derek. That's the all-important bit that Daniel pointed out for us there. You had a question, James. It's funny, the way that the Zoom chat works, things move around. And I know you asked a question very early on, James, so let's stay with Daniel. Here it is. Boa noite. The older microwave in our apartment quit, and our landlord says it's our responsibility to replace it. This is a good question. This is not specified in our rental contract. Is this customary in Portugal for tenants to replace worn-out appliances? What do you make of that, Daniel?
So I did address it in writing, but usually wear and tear is the responsibility of the landlord. If something gets a bit discolored, if the paint on the walls gets a bit yellow, this is, of course, the responsibility of the landlord. But let's say that something occurred with the plumbing, and it's easily perceivable that the tenant did force some of the plumbing in the sink. Then this is not wear and tear. This was the responsibility out of the tenant, and thus the tenant is the person responsible for repairs. Or, for instance, let's say that the flooring was all wet because of a pet. Someone is keeping a pet, and the pet unfortunately did something in the floor, and then the floor is now ruined. This is the responsibility of the tenant. But a situation like James was describing, this is where the gray zones start, especially because on his situation, the microwave is not described in the contract. So it doesn't seem to be part of the contract. If it was listed in the contract, I would say that the responsibility of the landlord was to put a new microwave in the property. As it's not listed in the contract, it's nuanced if he does have the responsibility of replacing the microwave. My advice is, well, buy a new microwave, keep it for yourself, and it's yours.
Yes.
Whenever you are to leave the property, take the microwave with you and just leave the old microwave in place. Because, it is what it is. You bought a new microwave because you need a new microwave to operate it, to have a normal life. But at the end of the day, the microwave is yours, and it's not your fault that the old microwave did break. So I don't think, it doesn't seem that the landlord is willing to replace that microwave. But at the end of the day, it's not your contractual obligation to replace it and to leave a new one. So buy a new one, keep it for yourself, and if you move places, take the microwave with you, leave the old one, and let the landlord sort it out, because it works both ways. It's not mentioned in the contract that the rental has a microwave, but as James was not the one responsible for breaking the microwave, he doesn't need to replace and to pay a new one to the landlord. But, and this is the caveat here, the landlord has the deposit.
Yes.
Having the deposit, are you going to lose the deposit for a 50 euros appliance? It's I don't know if you want to get into that debate. So yeah,
very good. Definitely an it depends answer.
Oh yeah, definitely.
However,
it's nuanced.
Yeah, and I appreciate the distinction. If it's wear and tear, it's with the landlord. If it's damage,
Correct.
willful or even accidental, if it's damage done by the tenant, it's the tenant's responsibility. Really
Correct.
helpful. Thank you for asking that question, James. And yeah, you might end up with a microwave with this, or now's the time to switch to an air fryer, Or do they do different jobs? I haven't got either. I don't know what I'm talking about with that. But okay, interesting situation for you, James. I hope that helps. Marcia, over to you, Claudia.
Yeah.
Does the FBI background check needed for the D7 application still need to be in effect for the IMA appointment? Thank you.
Marcia, only need present to FBI background in the visa process. When you come to Portugal and request in IMA your residence permit, you don't get a new FBI background, only in the visa, okay? Because imagine, in the visa process, it's an informatic system, and when you go in IMA, your FBI, it's an informatic system. Because of this, it's not mandatory present a new one.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Claudia.
Okay.
Excellent answer. There you go. Let's go to Sarah now. What's your thoughts on the pound to euro from Derek there, Sarah? I don't know if you give that sort of commentary, or are you going to just stick to the facts on that?
Well, I think again, it's sort of looking at sort of information that we've got coming out, and that's obviously what we can go on. One of the things at the moment that the oil prices are very high. I believe there is a 6-month high following the US sanctions on Russian oil last week. So it'll be more expensive for us to buy the same amount of oil, which could weaken the pound. Really, it's going back to what really the last couple of years about inflation and what the data is going to come out and show that, and whether the Bank of England will cut or raise interest rates. I think they're looking at maybe cutting rates in February. So again, it's watching out for the sentiment that's coming out and what they're planning to do with the interest rate. And again, it's just sort of then also looking historically, the levels at the moment are still quite good. If we look at the past sort of 5 years, we're still at relatively good levels. So again, it depends on your timeframes and when you're looking to move your money. If you have ongoing requirements, we might be able to fix the rate so that you've got a little bit of protection.
Wonderful. There you go, Derek. Sarah's answered your question there. Good question from Marcos as well. I think this is too much to ask, but we'll see about that, Marcos. Is there a difference? Is there an equivalent, I beg your pardon, in the US to the Junta de Freguesia? Now, in the UK, I would know it as the parish level. I don't know. Does anyone know that on the Dream Team, or do some of our American premium members know the answer to that? What is the equivalent of the Junta de Freguesia? Because it's not city, it's more town.
I don't think it exists, to be honest.
Exist. Okay.
I don't think it exists, the parish level.
Okay. Debbie and James are having a go. A Junta de Freguesia parish council, as we've said there, or the executive body of a civil parish in Portugal. Yeah, term translate to parish board in English. And James, the Junta de Freguesia is the council in charge of a civil parish, larger than a municipal area, smaller than a county council. Unless you live in Louisiana, there is not really a US equivalent. Oh, okay. Maybe that's the Portuguese in Louisiana who took that over there. Okay, Marcia, we've answered your question there on the FBI background check. Thank you for that. Any more questions, pop them in the chat. And Judge Judy, that doesn't always often happen here, does it, Daniel? But Judge Judy's made an appearance thanks to LaRonda. If it's not written within the 4 corners of the written contract, it doesn't exist. Thank you very much, LaRonda and Judge Judy. Good evening, everyone, from Talanay. First time joiner here. Thank you for being here, and you're very welcome. Seeking some guidance on property law in Portugal. I think we're coming to you, Daniel, for this. We sadly lost our mum in March of last year. Sorry to hear that. Our parents had together just bought a villa in Albufeira, her lifelong dream. Oh. And at the time of my mum's passing, they had no will made for this property. My question is about how a will-less property is split and inherited in Portugal. From our research, if a property had no will, it then follows Portuguese law, stating my mum's children, me and my siblings, would inherit my mum's half or for the property with immediate effect. A following question, I'll come back to the following question, but very sorry to hear about what happened with your mum there, Talanay. And it does present a very interesting question to Daniel, which I'm sure he'll be able to answer for you.
So indeed, the Portuguese law is applicable because the property is in Portugal. But this may be a it depends answer. So If the person has tax residency here or has a residency permit here, or the last known residence was here, the Portuguese law is passable of being applicable. And if the Portuguese law is passable of being applicable, yes, the estate usually is divided between the spouse that is still living and the kids. The tradition in Portugal is that the property is not split up until the couple, the two members of the couple do die, and then the kids eventually end up splitting the property, either selling it or just registering the property in their own names. So the usual common thing to do in Portugal is that there's a couple, one of the parents in the couple ends up passing away. No one does anything. The property keeps on as it was in the last 10 or 20 years. And then the remaining spouse dies, and then the kids end up dividing the property amongst themselves. This is what usually people do in Portugal. What we've discussed several times is that when people do migrate outside of Portugal, this creates havoc in distributing the assets, because sometimes it skips 1 or 2 generations, and then you end up with a deed that has 20 people, but I do digress. So to avoid having the Portuguese law applicable, our usual recommendation is that an international will should be signed. And this allows the person that has any assets in Portugal, either cars, property, bank accounts, companies in Portugal, to distribute their assets in a different way that the Portuguese law does allow. So the Portuguese law is quite strict. You cannot benefit any of the kids comparing to the others, or, well, basically you're forced to pass on the property in equal terms to all the kids that you have. If by any reason, way or shape, you want a different arrangement from this one, then my advice is to have an international will mentioning the foreign law that you wish to have applied, either the UK law or the US law, that are way more lenient in terms of the asset distribution. So you are able to distribute your assets as you wish. And then if it's the US law applicable, it's, well, the Portuguese law is not applicable. That's basically it. It's either one or the other. So having an international will is a really useful tool for people that do not desire having the Portuguese law applicable.
Good. Okay. Thank you for that in this difficult situation here for Tirana. And there was a second part to this, which you might have kind of alluded to, but the following question, or the follow-up, is, can the other living spouse override this? Other research we've done says for a British citizen, their overseas property, being the villa in Albufeira in this case, will then follow what is written in the person's will for their UK estate property. Probably not from what you said there, Daniel. Can someone advise? And that's why we're asking Daniel. He's the expert on this. So what can the surviving spouse influence this situation, I think, is the question being asked here.
I would say yes, to avoid having the Portuguese law applicable. So this really depends on the person that passed away. Was he living in Portugal full time? Does he have a residency permit or not? Does he have tax residency or not? Basically, we'll need a bit more information to perceive if it's possible to well, step away the Portuguese law and have the UK law being applicable. So with the data that we have here, it's not possible to have a clear-cut reply. And we've had cases that the main case was actually debating what was the law applicable to the assets of someone that passed away.
Yes.
The way to avoid this is to have the international will. It seems that in this specific case, this was not set up. But if the will done outside of Portugal in the UK does mention the Portuguese house, I would say there's a good window of opportunity to try to avoid the Portuguese law being applicable. But the best course of action, I would say, is to reach out, send us all the documents connected with the property, with tax documents, eventual residency permits, so we can assess this a bit better and provide sound legal advice. But generically, it may seem possible to have the Portuguese law not applied if the UK law did mention the Portuguese property.
Okay, they're not residents, says Tarana, and is thanking you for your valuable insight there. So you can see what to do. Can I please have your details for a follow-up? Daniel, thanks so much. Yes, you can. You
Yes,
can find Daniel. Well, Daniel will put his details into the chat now, I'm sure.
I'll put it here in the chat.
Yeah, and so clearly you would advocate on the behalf of your client in this situation. Yes, dealing with the other partner or even the government, depending on where the situation goes.
Yes, indeed.
All right, thanks, Daniel. Much appreciated there. And you're staying with you, Derek. This is very interesting, Derek, because when I was researching this earlier on, post Brexit UK citizens. Now that makes all the difference. I think pre-Brexit, they can vote in September. And you're saying here, according to the Portuguese newspaper this morning, and well done, Derek, for reading the Portuguese paper. Post-Brexit, UK citizens must have been legally a resident here, been legally resident here for 3 years. Can send you the copy. Thanks, and thanks, Sarah, there, the answer to your question there. And thanks, Sarah, for putting your details for anybody who wants to get in touch with you and request the copy of the Moving Money to Portugal guide. That's Expats Portugal at spartanfx.co.uk to get that. Thanks, Sarah, for popping that in there. And yes, there you go, Tarana. And anybody else, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, anyone else who needs Daniel's contact details, he's popped them into the chat right there. Okay. I think that might be all the questions dealt with for now. If I haven't done that, please remind me. As I said, the Zoom chat seems to jump around all over the place there, so it's not always easy to see, and I may have missed something. Thank you, Connie, for being here tonight as well. You may want to mention when your next online social is for members, and if you do have a question, please get it in now, because we're drawing to a close here. Many thanks, Daniel. I'll be in touch. Best wishes and have a great evening from Tarane there. Okay. And over on YouTube, it might be only fair to just take a couple of questions. The new rules, however, YouTubers over there, is you need to be a premium member to put questions to the Town Hall Dream Team here. I want to say hello to everybody who's over there, though. Nubianet, Vicky, Gina, Fiore's over there, Factology, Just Jess, a few familiar names and faces over there, Davi R, JMC, and Geo as well over there this evening. One question from YouTube that might be of general benefit here was it was to you, Nuno, I think. I think that's still on there, about the getting an SNS number. Oh yeah, how to change my assigned SNS center. I think you might be, I mean, it's not strictly speaking an insurance issue, is it? But I didn't realize it was written in the comments and forgot to note it down. If you don't mind, could you please write it again and I'll screenshot? I'm not sure what Factology is saying there, but what's the deal in changing your SNS center if you'd like to do that, Nuno? Do you know?
If you change address, supposedly you should change also the healthcare center, the public healthcare center. I think, once again, that you just need to attend to the healthcare center and request it. Right. Nevertheless, there are healthcare centers that has no doctors available. As you know, we are roughly 10.6 million people living in Portugal, and 1.5 million don't have doctor practitioner, so general practitioner. So they cannot guarantee that you on the new one they assign you to a doctor. So you need to try. You really need to try.
Yes, I don't want to change my address, just the SNS, as it's far from the metro. It's not about the doctor. Okay, so thank you.
Oh yeah, well, it's the same. It's a change of the SNS. So changing the health. I'm assuming that it's changing the healthcare center.
Yes.
If it's so, is the same situation.
Okay, thank you very much for addressing that, Nunu, there. Now, I've got a kind of cultural newsy question that we can conclude with this evening. Before I do that, let me just read you what Connie's sharing with us. The online social first Saturday of the month. So make sure you're along for that on Zoom, where you can connect with other Expats Portugal members. RSVP on expatsportugal.com. It's a party atmosphere where we talk about all things Portugal. We have people come who live here now and those who are scouting or researching moving here. So it's a real mixed audience as well. Debbie won't be at the next one. She'll be on a transatlantic ship. How exciting. And the meeting, first Saturday of the month, is at 8 p.m. Portugal time. That'll be. I've been seeing private doctors using my MGen, but locals told me I am required to get an SNS doctor. Do I have my SNS number? Do I really need an SNS doctor? I suppose the question then, Nuno, is do you have to have a state doctor, or can you just work with private doctors through your health insurance?
You can work exclusively with the private doctors. Nevertheless, is highly recommendable.
Yep.
Recommendable.
Yep.
Recommendable to get the SNS number, because for instance, if a doctor, no matter if he's a from the public or private sector, if a doctor prescribe you medication, there are like 2/3 of the medication in Portugal are sponsored by the Portuguese state, and you only get will get the reduced cost if you have a SNS number. Okay. So
yeah,
so you don't need a doctor from the SNS,
right,
but you really need the SNS number.
There you go. That's sorted that out for Debbie. And Connie's saying, we did just that from Southampton to New York, transatlantic on a liner from Southampton to New York. That sounds like a webinar idea, Astrid, doesn't it? To get somebody from the shipping company to talk about how joyful that might be to cruise over one way or the other across the Atlantic. And Daniel might even work his way up to being a captain on one of those one of these days. The retirement idea for you, Daniel. Right, excellent stuff. Thank you for all the questions this evening so far. And we'll go into the last section with a bit of a cultural question, whereupon I would attempt to share my screen again. Can you see this on the screen, everybody? I noticed that in Lisbon, a group of shop owners and some tourists as well have been asking for more CCTV to be installed in certain parts of downtown Lisbon. Now, traditionally, we've had our own social system, as you can see on the screen there. The UK and USA have obviously gone for cameras and CCTV. What do you make of this Dream Team Town Hall panel here tonight about the request for more CCTV? I'm a little bit disappointed, actually, that there's a request for more CCTV in Portuguese culture. What do you make of this? Let's start with the lawyer, because this is an interesting thing as far as the law goes, isn't it, Daniel, about prosecution and the psychological effect of CCTV. But at the same time, it's a bit of a shame, isn't it, to see more cameras coming into Lisbon Live?
Yeah, for me, one of the biggest culture shocks that I had living in London was the amount of cameras that you saw everywhere. And this was 2004, so 20 years ago. And at the time, you would see a lot of CCTV everywhere. And I only can assume that the situation got worse in London. And it was a culture shock for me, because you don't see that in Portugal. And even with 20 years passing by, there's still not a lot of cameras. You would see a few cameras in public spaces. In some rougher neighborhoods, they've installed some public cameras as well, but a bit trying to deter crime. So I have mixed feelings about the public camera systems, and I think in some ways they do invade the privacy of everyone. In some other ways, they're really good at deterring crime or at least finding the suspects of a crime. So I do have mixed feelings about that. But that picture that you did show it's completely true. The old ladies in Lisbon and anywhere in Portugal, they like to go into their windows and they'll see everything and anything that goes around in the street. So beware. If you're shoplifting, they will know.
It's so reassuring to know. I have put it into the chat should anybody want to keep that as a memento this evening. Thanks, Daniel, on that. And is there anything constitutional about surveillance as well?
There's a lot of people that well, they install cameras in their property and they're not aware that they should be filming the streets. They can only film their own property. So we do have what we call a Commission of Protection of Data, and they're quite strict about people having their own cameras filming the street. And if that is the case, usually those types of footages will not be able to be used in a court of law. So filming in the street, if you're filming with your cell phone and a crime has just occurred, that's a possibility of using that footage. But if you have a fixed camera, well, filming the outside and that camera is not an authorized camera, and then you send the footage to a court of law, that footage can eventually be contested and not used in a court of law. So it has a lot of degrees of complexity, and it's not an easy feat. So in all public spaces, cameras that are installed, they should have the correct authorizations of the the Commission of Protection of Data. And this goes for working spaces. Having your employees with a camera targeted, let's say someone that is working at the tiller and they have a camera pointing at the tiller, that's usually not a good idea because, well, if the employee does take some money, you're not supposed to use that footage. So it is indeed cumbersome to have people being filmed here in Portugal, and those the footage being useful for anything in a court of law.
That's great. Thank you for being here tonight. And your details are in the chat for anybody who needs them. Thank you for your insight on that. And I agree with you, mixed feelings. And I think the country generally has mixed feelings on that. And it's great that it's a matter of debate rather than just a straightforward introduction. Nuno, we've talked to you about cameras, specifically with cars. What do you think, as a Lisbon resident, as a Lisboeta, as a Alfacina, what do you make of the increased CCTV?
Well, it's not something that actually bothered me. With all the cars that are in our streets nowadays, all of them with cameras, with our mobile phones that we are trackable. The privacy is an illusion.
Forget it, right? Okay.
It really is. So yeah, do what you want. It doesn't bother me at all.
Okay, very interesting. Very interesting. Does it reduce premiums? That's what we want to know from you. If you've got these recording systems,
don't consider that because it really, if we are not talking about expensive goods like fine art, jewelry, expensive watches, and so on, I never consider CCTV systems or an alarm, because if due to a claim somehow the system was not working properly, the insurer could refuse pay the claim. So we never consider that. We prefer to charge maybe €2 or €3 a year rather than put in risk a big claim in the future. So
very good. Thank you, Nuno, for that and your insight on that. Forget about privacy, basically. Sarah, we don't want it being more like the UK, do we? With more cameras, we didn't move here for that.
Really, I mean, I feel very safe here, actually, and that's one of the things that I like about living here, is very safe. So I suppose one of the questions is crime increasing? Is that why they feel
that's what they're saying? Yeah, that there is a particular complaint in that part of Lisbon.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, I can see the benefits if it would deter the crime, and obviously then you could also identify the criminals. But then there's this kind of big brother watching you sort of thing.
Exactly. But Nuno's already covered that. Nuno says he's watching you all the time anyway, so we needn't worry.
Trying to move away from that, that you've been listened to all the time. So I like no cameras, but I do see the benefit.
Very good. Thank you, Sarah. It's an interesting topic, isn't it? Claudia, is this why Porto is better than Lisbon? Because you don't have all these worries and crime waves up there.
Yes, to crime. Yes, in Porto, it's much better. But attention, because I'm born in Lisbon, and 5 years ago, because of I come to Porto.
Right. Okay.
Yes, but I'm born in Lisbon. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice
all right. Fair enough. So Tripeira and Alfacina in one.
Yes, I am Alfacina. Yeah.
Okay.
I am
very
Alfacina.
good. Thank you for being here. So what do you think though, CCTV? Yes or no? What do you think?
I don't know, because it's dangerous, because it's my personal thing. I go in
Yeah.
the streets and I have a camera for me. It's for me, no. For me,
Very
no.
interesting.
I don't
Thank you, Claudia. Great job tonight, by the way. Thanks so much for both webinars. Thank you for being here. Great job. Excellent. Let Gilda know what a brilliant job you did first tomorrow morning, if you will, from us. Thank you very much. Pedro, Porto, better than Lisbon, right? No need for all these cameras everywhere.
Carl, don't worry. They have cameras, but they don't record anything. Have you not heard about those guys that fled from the prison? And
Yes.
they had cameras, but the cameras were not turned on,
Okay.
or they were not recording.
I didn't think about that. Okay. It's just cameras.
Just a dummy. It's just a dummy
Right.
on a
It saves money for the
doesn't work.
taxpayer. They don't have a video recorder or a computer. It's just a camera. Excellent
It's
answer,
cheaper than
Pedro.
sending policemen out to the streets, which is dangerous. Don't worry.
Very good indeed. Thanks, Pedro. Thanks all of you. Great job tonight. Astrid, what's happening next week on 7:30?
Thank you, Carl. Next week at 7:30, we have our friends from the Portugal company coming on board, who are going to be revealing 5 hotspots that you should be looking at to live or purchase property here in Portugal. So some places that are up and coming that you may not have considered, but definitely worth checking out if you're already here or you're coming on a scouting trip. So it's a good one. I think it'll be very interesting. So we've got that one. And then, of course, we've got the town hall at 9 o'clock.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. And Marcos, a last word here. You're absolutely right. We have been recording you drinking wine all night here, and you can buy the DVD. It's like going on a roller coaster. You can buy a DVD of yourself on the webinar as you make your way through the exit. Thank you very much, everybody. See you again tomorrow evening at 7:30 and again for the town hall thereafter. Great job, Dream Team. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Premium members.